you know, the substance of you is that you're a human being. An accident of you is that you've got brown coloured hair. You know, brown hair is an accident. It's part of what makes you, but it's not the essence of you. So the essence of a meeting is this, you know, and the experience which comes and is beautiful is an accident. Now, Buber talks about, I think he does, or I'm making this up, I'm not sure. Buber talks about trying to catch waves in the sandhills. You know, in the sandhills, you trace where the waves used to be. That's what it's like to chase an experience. You know, to go looking for yourself, peeling back this onion like as if there's something there to be found. Absolutely nuts idea. Right. Another way he talks about it is, like he thinks to have an experience and to have human feelings is a very colourful, beautiful part of being alive. But he said, it's like going to a play and locating yourself in the orchestra pit, where the music's beautiful and all of that, but the play's happening up on stage. You do not know what's going on while you're living in the accompaniment. You get it? And so to chase the experience of knowing you is really to say, I want to use you.
Can you cause a meeting?
No.
So how do you strive for it?
It always comes, by grace. Grace.
What does that mean?
Accident.
By chance.
Accident. You can't make it happen. If you could make it happen, you manipulate somebody. There, you're it. You know, you just have to be ready for a surprise, which is another way of saying grace.
But presumably you could be more receptive to the possibility or less receptive.
Yep. You can live in expectation of waiting for a surprise, but you can't make the surprise happen. When it comes, it will always be a surprise.
Just sit down and clear your mind.
Sure.
And
Hope for a surprise. Yeah. But hoping for it is not to make it happen. It's to just, you know, it's to. I've just got annoyed at my wife because she can't bloody do the toothpaste tube properly, and I've got myself really annoyed by that. And what I can do is continue to be annoyed and start thinking of other things she can't do, or I can be ready to meet her again as if for the first time. I remember when I first saw her as a grandmother and fell in love with her again as a grandmother. Who would have thought that? I never thought I was going to sleep with a grandmother. But it's really good, I recommend it. Yes?
Often they're related to joy and happiness at the top.
Yeah.
Does Buber have a vocabulary of joy and happiness? Because it seems to me that the I thing could still be joy and happiness. He would say
Indeed. Yeah.
It's not real living, but
Yeah.
I still could give joy and happiness.
Yep. Just to try and disentangle ourselves from absurdity a little again. And to go back to the ancients, do you remember, I don't forget now what I said back when we were doing ancients, but do you remember Aristotle talked about happiness and the good life, and he used this Greek word eudaimonia, and the last thing on his mind was feel good. What that word means is, if you had a plant and you put it in a garden and there's adequate drainage and good soil and sun and rain and the right conditions, then you could say that that plant is flourishing, it's strong. That's eudaimonia. So it's the good life and feeling good, two entirely different things.
That's
been brought up again by Martin Seligman
Mm.
in 2011.
He uses
That
that word,
concept.
doesn't he?
Yeah.
That word exactly in that concept, exactly.
And what Buber, I'm a bit naughty sometimes, I call him the Buber man. And I sometimes describe myself as a Buber man, but I'm mostly misunderstood. What he would say is, embracing this is where life is to be found. And there's good feeling here, and there's tragedy here. And there's good feeling here, and there's tragedy here. Sometimes it's very comforting to be stuck in your eye, and be an expert in why you're stuck there. Because once you're an expert, you know, everything is your object.
It's not that it's an experience can be like a bungee jump, for example.
Sure.
Can be exhilarating for somebody.
Yep.
But that's a naive thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Look, I suspect when you jump off, and I've never done this, and I hope to never do it. When you jump off this bridge or whatever it is with this cord around yourself, you're not going down thinking, what kind of experience is this? You're going, holy shit. You know, how did I agree to this? Your experience probably comes when you went back up again, or you stopped doing that, or you've broken your back. You know, that's where the experience comes, I think. So, how are we doing? We're doing all right. Skip some and go to page 21. Start if I face
If I face a human being as my thou, and say the primary word I thou to him, he is not a thing among things, and does not consist of things. Thus human being is not he or she, bound from every other he and she, a specific point in space and time within the net of the world, nor is he a nature able to be experienced and described, a loose bundle of named qualities, but with no neighbour and whole in himself. He is thou and fills the heavens. This does not mean that nothing exists except himself, but all else lives in his light.
Don't you think that's fantastic? That is the most fantastic writing, I think. I'm a little biased, of course. I think that's brilliant. Go over the page. Oh, actually, no, just as a melody. Yeah, just keep going, yeah.
Just as the melody is not made up of notes, nor the verse of words, nor the statue of lines, but they must be tugged and dragged till their unity has been scattered into these many pieces, so with the man to whom I say thou. I can take out from him the colour of his hair, or of his speech, or of his goodness. I must continually do this, but each time I do it, he ceases to be thou. And just as prayer is not in time, but in time in prayer, sacrifice not in space, but space in sacrifice, and to reverse the relation is to abolish the reality, so with the man to whom I say thou. I do not meet with him at some time and place or other. I can set him in a particular time and place. I must continually do it, but I set only a he or she, that is an it, no longer my thou. So long as the heaven of thou is spread out over me, the winds of causality cower at my heels, and the whirlpool of fate stays its course. I do not experience the man to whom I say thou, but I take my stand in relation to him in the sanctity of the primary word. Only when I step out of it do I experience him once more. In the act of experience, thou is far away.
Did you hear it? It's back to your question. I don't know how long it is since you saw two people hopelessly in love. those people need not wear watches. You ever say to a young person who's madly in love and they're going out, be home by 12 o'clock. What does that mean? Nothing. There is no time. When you stand in I thou, there is no time. In present time, there is no time. Do you get it? By the time you're looking at your watch, just stepped out of I thou.
And this is the parallel when they talk of being in the flow with even an activity, just giving over to it. There's no sense of I am when you're writing it.
Yeah, Buber, in next week, Buber talks about holding your ground. But I'll give you a little dose of next week. Buber would draw my artistic talents no bounds. Buber talks about life in the spirit, and I'm making this up, but he would draw it something like that. And when two people meet, it's something like that. And that's I, thou, and he calls this the sacred space. So there can only be a meeting when there's a sacred space handed on it. Now, the problem with the world we live in, because we're looking for an experience. Do you want to? In a world where we live for and look for experience and doom ourselves to loneliness before it all starts, because that's what we think this is about, we tend to see something good and we want to possess it. And in the act of possession, we violate the sacred ground, and the thing that we think we want evaporates before us. It's gone. The act of possession spoils our humanity. And woe betide us who are so possessed with the idea of possession that we're just doomed to this fatal chase of this is about my experience and you need to make me feel good.
So if you're saying that the I thou isn't necessarily ephemeral?
I'm not saying it's ephemeral at all, just the opposite. What I'm saying is, I can't see Kelly like this. I can't see it. When I take possession of her, I can't see it. She's become my thing. I can't, well, especially with 60-year-old eyes, I can't see Kelly unless I'm this far away. So it's to not possess. It's in the act of not possessing that meeting will take place.
Can I vow that when only one person is based in this goodness, can it happen if if the other person is thinking about me?
Buber asks that question, actually, and his answer is that Kelly can be seeing me as her thing, and I'm lost in the wonder of who she is.
Like those children, isn't it?
So, you know, it can happen. But if I'm seeing I, thou, if she wants to possess me, I'll try and preserve this space. Does that make sense? So, so this is kind of next week in a way, and for Buber, this is kind of how he gets religious. It's the space between, which is the sacred space.
I've read a little bit recently about the concept of love as well as the concept of attachment in Buddhism, and this is striking lots of chords with what I've read about that, in the sense that in Buddhism, you know, you're supposed to essentially love everyone the same amount because you want everyone else to be happy just as you want yourself to be happy.
Yeah.
And when that, which seems to be that people shouldn't get married because by marrying someone,
Yeah.
you're forming an attachment.
Yeah.
And this seems to imply the same thing by trying to, like what you're saying, when you go to weddings and people say, this is my wife,
Yeah.
you've made them an each.
Yeah.
And I'd be really interested to know how
Yeah.
that corollary
There's
is dealt with.
There really is a lot of common ground, but Buber loves attachments. But they won't last long.
Right.
So he says this is the melancholy of human life. And the attachment is what gives you life. So there's nothing wrong with the attachment. But you need to respect the sacredness, I'm trying to find another word, of that, because it's not going to last. You will lose it. And sooner or later, Kelly will be my thing. She, you know, I can tell you things about Kelly. Right. And as soon as I'm able to talk about Kelly, she is my thing. But in her presence, when it's not the person who does this for a living and but it's you, I can't say anything authoritative about her because I'm not an authority. Buber says wherever there's a thing, there's another thing. Do you get it? So, which is why at Wayside I try and discourage the use of this word client. Now I know people use it, and I know it's not the end of the world because you have to live in the world of I and it. But I try to use language that doesn't make I and thou impossible. And whatever you're my client, there's no chance that we'll meet. And if you're a client, if you're a thing, I'm a thing. I'm as lonely as you are. Which is why we say all the time, you know, Kelly's primary need is not for me to facilitate something or coordinate something or be available for something or to understand something or to think something. Her primary need is for me to meet. And because there's only humanity, there's only personhood when there's two of us. Otherwise, it's just individuals. Now that's where it parts company with the Buddhists because detachment from everything gives you, guess what? Yeah.
And loving everyone, read it like that.
That's right. Yeah. It's like the word friends. The more friends you got, the less the word.
I think the Buddhists would say attaching to an outcome is the problem.
Yeah.
Attachment comes and goes, and which has similarities.
Yeah. I'm not going to burn most of the stake or anything.
He hasn't been married for 6 years and it's actually
You would say clingy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neediness. Yeah. Go
There are
read.
three recognitions in Buber of the joy of meeting each other's needs, or is all self-interest in relation to any joy and satisfaction peripheral or exploitative. It does seem to be a bit of a flaw there because people enter into relationships and they do, you know, instead of pouring out all their experiences, they often wait if a friend's out at a medical emergency. So there is give and take. There needs to be a recognition that there is joy in meeting others' needs, and there's joy in meeting each other's needs,
Yeah. All Boots would say is be aware of when the joy comes from being I it or I that. There's no problem with that. There's no problem being I it.
So that's your inalienable principle.
And you can step out of it and step into it. You know, you're out of the room and I start talking about Rick. Well, Rick's my object. He's my thing. Nothing wrong with that. Especially if I'm saying Rick's a good bloke. You know, he does this and this, and you know, I really like him and he's intelligent and yada. There's nothing wrong with, you know, this is great. That I eat is fine. You know, it's the world we live in most of the time. But you're my thing.
So it's just like an awareness of the construction, how it's constructed, not that it's a negative, just understanding that this is sort of the foundation of the relationship.
Yes, be careful that you don't think I'm talking about a psychological disposition, because I'm not. You know, we're schooled in this psychology. I mean, if you read Boobs long enough, you'll start understanding that psychology itself is the science of lostness. Just offended all the psychologists in the room. I mean, there's social psychology and stuff, you know. I'm just maybe tad provocative, which I do sometimes. Where did we get to?
When somebody is sort of doing the whole navel gazing thing
Yeah.
and engaging with themselves
Yeah.
in an idea, like, are you then treating yourself as an it?
You are an it.
So you're being I it, but you're being both the I and the it.
You know, the world is your it, and you're an it. Because you've only got two choices. And that's what these first few paragraphs. You know, you have two words, two acts of being, and the I that you use is present in the act of your being. And if the act of your being creates I it, then that I is present. If the act of your being involves I thou, then that I is present. But you only have two choices. They're both relational. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go to page 31. How are we going to... Oh, gee. Maybe we should skip that. Go to page... it's such a pity, but I think we've covered it. Go to page 66 and just read that middle paragraph, which I just think is one of the cutest paragraphs in the world, but I don't want to get stuck on it. The middle one, page 66, that paragraph.
The primary word I, it, is not of evil, as matter is not of evil. It is of evil as matter is, which presumes to have the quality of present being. If a man lets it have the mastery, the continually growing world of it overruns him and robs him of the reality of his own I, till the Incubus over him and the ghost within him whisper to one another the confession of their non-salvation.
I love that paragraph. I wished I'd have written that. Do we need to struggle with that? What he's saying is that if you live continually in the world of I, it, in other words, if in every situation you happen to be the expert in the room, you create for yourself what he calls an incubus. Now, the loneliest prison you'll ever go to is the one you built. So you live your life in this incubus. You have the final word on all matters. It just so happens you're always the wisest person in the room.
Scary.
Isn't it? Ask yourself how often it turns out that you are the wisest person in the room. And so what he says is, if you live in there long enough, the incubus over you and the ghost within, because see, your real I is emptied, and what you have within is not the I of the I thou, but this empty ghost. So he says, till the incubus over you and the ghost within whisper to one another confessions of your non-salvation. I just think that's the cutest bit of language. This is important, and I think we've only got 2 minutes or so, and I've got 2 more bits I want to do if we can. Page 80, if you don't mind, has the power over the incubus.
As the power over the incubus is obtained by addressing it with its real name, so the world of it, which a moment ago was stretched in its uncanniness before the puny strength of men, is bound to yield to the man who knows it for what it really is, severance and alienation of that out of whose abundance, when it streams close at hand, every earthly thou is met, and of that which, though seeming at times great and fearful like the mother god, yet always had a motherly air.
Okay, that'll do. Those who wield power live in the world by it. They are authorities. They know what's best for the world.
Invariably.
Yeah, they always know what's best for the world. Have you noticed that the people who destroy the world always are doing it for the good of the world? They always know. You know, they're the ones who got the answers. So, the last thing this world needs is any more experts. It's the last thing we need. So the power of the I that has no object is the power to be able to name the incubus for what it really is. That's its power. Trying to say another way. It's the world that gets created when you're the expert all the time. It's that world. I'm not boring you to death, am I? No, okay. Just checking. The power of presence, he's saying, can make the power of power run. Not by the exercise of power, but by naming this alienation for what it really is. Does that make sense? So the guy that's blustering with all the power, he's got the guns, he's got the money, he's got the connections, he makes it all happen. You know, that is power, and that usually wins the day by most measures. You know, they're the ones who get the outcomes and all of that. But the person who knows presence names that as a lack of humanity. There is no humanity here. This is what we're looking at is the hardening of what should be supple. What we're looking at is the cessation of something that should be connected. You know, what we're looking at is the loss of capacity for humanness. And the I, thou, the one who lives in the presence of the other, can name that for what it is. And it makes bullies sometimes run. And I've seen many bullies run to hide their emptiness in a dark place. Second? That's exactly. The power of the person who lives in presence is the ability to say the emperor has no place.
I think it's a bit of a...
Well, you can say it.
And how often do you really see these power, whether they're princesses or prelates, ever respond to someone questioning at the place?
The answer is sometimes and mostly not.
Yeah.
So in this world, to live in the present is very likely to get you crucified, if you don't mind me borrowing a little Christian term. Now, Buber's Jewish, but he'll let me say that. Nevertheless, the capacity to name this thing and know what it is you can't take that away. And that's the power of I-thou.
You become a Cassandra, where you say what you name what's over there.
Yep.
And no one hears it, or they don't want to, or they can't.
Just tread carefully, because to be a world expert again is to be I-it. So, but all I'm talking about is knowing that the bluster belongs to